everyone, and good evening. Ms. Azusa Kuboto, Resident Representative of the United Nations, Professor Krishanta Besena, Minister of Science and Technology, Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, Honorable Deputy Ministers Ranga Veeraratne, Digital Economy, and Chaturanga Besinghe for Industries. Also, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm first of all honored and privileged to be here this evening and to place in context the development of Sri Lanka's digital economy blueprint vis-a-vis the opportunities as well as challenges on the overall landscape of technology, of inclusion, of social development, and of course, economic development. In crafting Sri Lanka's digital economy blueprint and roadmap, we have taken a whole of economy approach, and hence the reference to digital economy as opposed to information technology or IT technology or any other form of automation. So it's an overarching ambition to use digital means to grow Sri Lanka's economy. On one hand, to accelerate growth, and on the other hand, to uplift indices such as the Human Development Index, inclusion indices, capability indices, and very importantly, national competitiveness. So the ambition here is to use digital tools, digital raw materials, digital factors of production. So we are talking about data, we are talking about technologies like AI, about which you will hear a lot this evening, technologies such as the Internet of Things, cloud, and various other digital inputs and digital drivers of economic growth and development. Now we all know that as the percentage or ratio of the digital economy relative to the macroeconomy increases. Sri Lanka is today at around 3 to 5% ratio, and we have an ambition, the Sri Lanka government has an ambition to multiply this by 5x to take it to a percentage in the region of 15% over the next 5 years. Now, why is this important? This is important because as you grow this ratio from the low single digit to mid double digit, the propensity of the economic growth of the country to receive an uplift, a kicker in the short to medium term also increases. So how do we grow this bubble? The basic definition of a digital economy is around digital payments, information and communication technology services, telecommunication services, IT, hardware, software, etc. That's the narrowest definition. The next level would be the platform economy, like e-commerce and ride-hailing, for instance. Pure digital platform play. But the most incisive and the most aggressive source and form of digital economy acceleration is when those digital tools, digital factors of production, penetrate into every single industry. And this is where the various indices that we are talking about, in particular if you look at the HDI, as digital tools and the prevalence and propensity of using digital raw materials pervades service sectors such as education and health, drives employment, and drives digital skills which are global in nature. The acceleration of the growth of the economy increases. However, we would also realize that here we are dealing with, when we talk about AI, one of the most incisive tools among all those digital tools that I mentioned. Because AI, in fact, will reside at the very epicenter of a nation's competitiveness, at the very epicenter of the economy, as well as the nation's competitiveness relative to its peers and its competitors. So that those who adopt AI and use AI intelligently and inclusively will gain a competitive advantage against their peers. And when we talk about a digital economy, we are entering a global landscape. We no longer can take refuge in the fact that we are an island with clear borders. Now we are competing on the global landscape. And hence, those incisive tools, which are the epicenter of competitiveness, become extremely potent. But the potency is not only with respect to competitiveness. Potency is a double-edged sword. And while on one hand, these technologies can be used to bridge divides, uplift human development, uplift education, health, well-being, at the same time, the danger and the impact of gaps between those who use and know to use versus those who do not use or do not have access is also far more drastic than when the technology itself is less potent. So you're playing with what I would call a double-edged sword. Now, on the positive end, where we start off is a very solid foundation, a fertile base to grow a digital economy. Start with the Human Development Index itself. We are already a high HDI nation. And therefore, the guardrails that we need to put in place are from a position of strength as opposed to from a position of weakness. And also the fact that our Gini coefficient, or the inequality coefficient, on a regional basis is one of the best. So that even if we were to correct the HDI for inequality or the IHDI index, you will find that Sri Lanka is in a positive and strong position relative to the rest of South Asia. So with that solid foundation, we embark on the development and acceleration of a digital economy. And to do this, we have some beliefs and principles. I'm not going to go into the 10 or so principles that we have adopted, on one hand with respect to fundamental beliefs, and on the other, technology principles. On the fundamental end, inclusion is number one and is at the top of every page in terms of the fundamental beliefs and principles that have been used and will be used in designing and evolving Sri Lanka's digital economy roadmap. On the technology end, AI first is one of the fundamental technology principles. So inclusion, AI. So therefore, the North Star that we have to aim for is to drive inclusion through AI. Difficult, but very possible, while concurrently exploiting AI to drive competitiveness, economic growth, better public services, better health, better education, and the development of globally competitive skills. So the digital economy blueprint has a wash of AI at all layers of its architecture, both with respect to the horizontal infrastructures or digital public infrastructures, which are soft infrastructures which span the full gamut of government and the private sector. The Sri Lanka Unique Digital Identity, for example, is a digital public infrastructure. And there are many others: authentication, the National Data Exchange, federated data lakes, etc., as well as on the AI side, AI tool sets, AI models, which can be used across government. Likewise, AI features on the verticals, for instance, in health, in education, in agriculture. So overall, I would say that AI washes across in different contexts, in different forms of application, but AI is omnipresent throughout the blueprint. But equally important is the fact that this blueprint is wrapped by a framework of governance and trust. And again, the headline right at the top is inclusion. So our ambition is to drive inclusion to the extent that we will have a much more equal nation at the end of this endeavor. And the ambition will be supported through legislation, institutional frameworks, safe AI, responsible application of AI and other digital technologies, and also brought together with an overall trust environment which engenders the use of AI by the population at large. I think we also, while calling this a double-edged sword, we also need to take the glass half full approach and start on the premise that technology is intrinsically inclusive. Intrinsically inclusive because no technology is invented, other than maybe defense technologies invented to kill people. Progressive technologies are invented to make things cheaper, to make things more capable, to have more features. And therefore, I believe that technology is intrinsically inclusive. And it helps to relate it to some dimensions when challenging yourself in the application of technologies. And I often use the 5 A's of inclusion. The first A is affordability, of course. Availability, universally available, broadly affordable. Applicability or relevance, it should apply into the lives of a majority of the population. Affinity, the 4th A, which relates to cultural affinity, trust, and the familiarity which grows through adoption and usage. And the 5th one is amplification, or the ability to scale that technology to population level. So web scale or population scale. So these are some of the dimensions of inclusion which it helps to challenge every single technology that you apply. And AI will qualify against all of these under natural conditions. And I would really add the 6th A to driving inclusion with AI, and that is the agility with which our population at all levels, public services, citizens, the private sector, service providers, and regulators, as well as the governance engine of the country, has to be agile in order to ensure inclusion where AI is concerned. Now, I said that AI is technology, and therefore AI is arguably intrinsically inclusive, provided you use it with the right intent. However, there are some situations where technology is not inclusive. And the observation that we can come to is either there are 2 cases. One is when the speed of change of that technology is so rapid, and we call that disruption, and successive and almost compulsive disruption, where the turns and twists of the technology and what it does so rapid that you cannot include everybody at each turn. And that's a risk inherent to technology and high-speed disruption. And I dare say that we are at that phase of AI evolution where it's very hard to keep pace from an inclusion angle, but we must. The second is where externalities create imperfections in the market structure, where externalities create dislocation and displacement. And these could be in the form of supply-demand distortion, trade sanctions, limitations of supply, inflation of costs, and the weaponizing of these very, very potent technologies in order to create competitiveness gaps in the global landscape and drive imbalances in competitiveness between nations. And this is where I believe using the findings of a report such as the HDI report, where the facts are sobering but very, very true, and the impacts are beginning to show. And on that basis, for the international community to take rapid action to ensure that those displacements, dislocations, man-made disruption within what would inherently be a beautiful tool, completely inclusive tool to develop the people of our country as well as the world, to ensure that action is taken, unlike in the case of climate action, not decades late, but now, to ensure that the power of AI is evenly distributed, equally available, and affordable. Thank you very much.